Okay. All right, we got that working now. All right. So we got Facebook working. I don't know. That was a weird issue we have where when we connect via the RTMP to restream, it automatically connects to all the services, and it doesn't let me change the settings. So, very bizarre. All right, just waiting on Paul now. That's all good there. That's all good there. Just open up some notes. All right, let me open this story. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. It is interesting how. Hi, Paul.
Hey.
Hi, we're live. Just want to let you know.
Okay.
Warning you.
Well, God damn it.
God. All right, let me center you in the shot here.
Okay. My wife and daughter went to Charlotte today, so I've been up since like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Any specific reason? Colleges?
Yeah.
Or where's she looking to go?
You're really low, by the way.
I'm off mic.
Oh, there you go. I'm sorry, what did you ask?
Where's she plan on going?
Well, it's not so much as she's planning on going, but she got accepted to, I guess it's UNC, Charlotte.
Cool.
So she wanted to go check it out.
Suncast, on the stream, are we leveled? Are Paul and I leveled? Because people have been complaining that we are not leveled with each other. And I don't know why. It's hard for me to tell because looking at the view meter on my board is very different than what you guys hear. It seems mostly fine today. Okay. That's a answer.
It's a ringing endorsement.
You guys are not that terrible today.
Usually terrible, but today it's only a little terrible.
Pouring rain outside. You know what? I envy people that can make a decision by just looking at something and be like, that's what I'm going to buy. It took me 3 hours. I bought the TV, by the way.
You did.
I did. I bought it. We'll talk about it. But I am not capable of enjoying anything that I buy. I just,
Anything?
anything. I have to second guess every decision I make, and I have to harp on all the negatives of the product. And then when I get it, I'm like, it's okay.
So that's interesting. That's related to an issue that I have.
You don't enjoy anything either?
No, I enjoy some things, but I mean, I feel great uncertainty over things.
Okay.
Like for example, the example I often use is I had a friend who lived in Phoenix, and him and his wife bought this house around the same time we bought our first house, which is like 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
And you knew, like, this guy was like, I'm done. This is where I want to die. I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. And like, I never, it's not so much that I wanted to be like that, but I just wanted to be that certain about
That's
anything.
me.
You know,
That's me.
he was
That's where I'm going to
positive.
die.
Oh man, I gotta grab my tissue.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna cry. No, I've been
Go ahead.
sneezing like for the past 3 days. Hold, please.
Oh, it's 1 o'clock. Look at that. You could turn Paul down a bit. Okay. Then -1 dB for Paul. Hi, Nick.
It's the first podcast I've needed a box of tissues.
Are you ready to begin?
Sure.
All right, it's 1 o'clock. Let's start this right on the dot in 3, 2, and 1. What the Tech is brought to you by Text Expander. Text Expander helps you communicate smarter. Visit textexpander.com/podcast for 20% off your first year. Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good. How are you?
Paul, I am doing wonderful. This is the second time Paul and I have spoken today.
Right.
He guided me through my insanity around 11 o'clock this morning, which I kind of wanted to. I wasn't planning on talking about it, but it kind of brought me into a spiral of thought, I guess.
A spiral of self-loathing.
I seem to, and a lot of people like this too, with all the information that we're provided about everything that we kind of purchase, any kind of purchase, big purchase, small purchase, we kind of second guess ourselves with the decisions we make. We do, and I kind of envy the people that look at something on Amazon. They're like, "That looks cool. I'm gonna buy it."
Done.
We're not doing done, and they're happy. Yep. They're happy because they did not see the negativity that goes along with it. So I kind of want to talk about that because I bought a TV, and you guys will be very surprised when I tell you what TV I purchased, because this is totally against my way of purchasing TVs. I go against my recommendation of buying. I always recommend people to buy an inexpensive, decent mid-range TV, right? Because the technology on these television sets are changing so often. Nobody's hanging on to these things for 20 years like maybe your parents did. You know, having a TV for 10 years was a normal thing in my house growing up. I had a Hitachi, a 26-inch Hitachi when I was a kid. I'm going back to the 80s, and that TV lasted until like the HD days in my house. So think about, probably 15, 20 years, more than that maybe. Yeah, 2000 and let's say 1988 they bought that TV. Probably went all the way to 2004. So that's a significant amount of time to have a television. But by today's standards, people are swapping TVs every other year. Some people. I'm not saying that that's the right way to do it, but depending on the technology that comes out, your purchasing of television, it's rapid. So I kind of wanted to talk about that. But before I do, I want to really suggest and recommend you guys all go to Thurrott.com. A lot of the show topics that we discuss here come exclusively from Thurrott.com. Obviously, we incorporate other sites too. But
not so much the TV topic, but
no, the TV topic, no. Which maybe it could be a topic. It'll be on Thurrott.com because the show's posted on there. But I get my daily tech information. The first thing I do, I go to Thurrott.com, and I'm not saying this because Paul's a friend. I probably would still say it, but I most likely would still say it because it's the easiest way for me to consume the top stories that I'm interested in, without having to go through ads and go through clickbaity stories. You know, you and Brad do an unbelievable job, and everybody else on the site. You guys work really hard. And a way to kind of give back for the amazing content that you guys give on the website is by signing up for Thurrott Premium. You could join Thurrott Premium right now. You could explore the benefits. It's $55 annually, $7 a month, and you get access to all these extra bonus articles that Paul writes, the podcasts, to the forum, to support even on the site. You get access to all these great articles on there, and it's a great read. And a lot of times, a lot of the deep dive topics that we discuss come exclusively from Thurrott.com, and you guys could it's almost like a companion article to the topics we're discussing. I want to give a shout out. Obviously, Paul hates it when I plug his website here on the show. He gets very uncomfortable with any kind of advertising for himself. So, but I do it because Paul doesn't pay me to do it. That's why. If he paid me to do it, I would say, no, Paul, I'm not doing it. But I really enjoy the website, and I wanted to give it a little shout out before we begin and dive into a series of topics here, which will be touching on a lot of stuff from Thurrott. So this morning, oh, by the way, we got a $5 donation here, Paul, on YouTube. This is amazing. This is the beauty of the internet. He's presented a question which I will answer at the end of the show because this is a great question about foldables. So I want to kind of sit on that, and we'll discuss it at the end of the show. Great subject. So let's. I want to dive into this because it was a very last minute decision for me to purchase this TV. We're going to be doing a lot of watch alongs on the wrestling show that we do on Mat Men, Rich and I. And the way that we've been doing it is on a 14-inch HP laptop. So pretty much what I do, I pivot it to kind of face both of us, and we're all sitting like this, sideways, doing these watch-alongs. And obviously, we're making some money with these, so I thought I would invest it into buying a TV. It would be sitting in my office, so it's not something I'm going to be using to watch, film and cinema and really need the details of the black levels to be perfect and everything else. So I went on Amazon, and the first thing I did was put in 50-inch TV, HDR. So very 50-inch. I'm going to do it right now with you guys. Inch TV, HDR. So the suggestion that I got, Paul, and I don't know, were you surprised when I told you what the TV was?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I guess it could have been anything. I was mostly surprised just by the price.
It's a Hisense.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't be my normal pick
Hisense is
for
like
TV.
isn't that a Huawei brand? I think it's.
Is it a Huawei? It could be.
They have a lot of high whatever brand type thing.
You know what? You know what they're associated with? What's that? That Google TV box that you got? The Xiaomi, right? Wasn't it a Xiaomi?
Oh,
Xiaomi?
Yeah, the Mi Box.
The Mi Box, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Because pretty much there's a Mi Box inside of this thing.
Okay.
Nearly identical specs. So I got a Hisense 50H8F, 50-inch 4K Ultra HD TV, HDR10, and it's $329. I had about $200 in Amazon credits, and I had a bunch of donations. So pretty much, the TV was free for me. But I didn't want to really spend money, and I wanted to get one of these lower-end, newer TVs that are out there. Because right now, I have a Vizio that I paid $1,400 for in my bedroom, and I have a Samsung. I have another Vizio that I paid like $1,200 in my living room. So I don't want to spend the money, but I wanted to get all the bells and whistles, and this one really seemed to be the one that really gave the most bang for your buck. And it is interesting how these TVs are very competitive in pricing and quality. And are people buying these TVs? Is this the TV that people are buying, or are they still going for the higher end devices?
I don't know. You remember we talked about how, different brands kind of come and go. Like Vizio was the big brand at Costco for a while, and now it's something else. We had TCL or whatever. I feel like these guys are just in that category, that TV technology has become commoditized. It's all made in China. So these Chinese companies can come up. They can just ship them the same quality product for a lot less money.
Because they're making the parts to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. So I'm going to be getting this thing next 2 days, and I'm going to mount it on the TV and on the wall and everything. But this is my first dive into a cheaper television, and this thing is bezel-less. If you take a look at
it, they're tiny. It is really nice looking.
It's a ULED technology. That's what they're calling it.
it's like OLED, but it's the Chinese version.
It's OLED, but with a U and not an O. It has wide color gamut. It has full array local dimming, motion rate of 240, which we Paul and I were talking about. It's not 240 hertz.
It looks, not at 4K. It's not.
Not at 4K. It's 60. It's 60 hertz at 4K, obviously. But and then it has a high view chipset, and the research that I did, it's about a 1.8 quad core chip in this thing, which is not bad considering what you're buying. For $329, it's not a bad get. So I got this TV, but what I was thinking is, Paul, do you remember the day you walked into a store and you just bought it? You just thought about, you're like, okay, that's the one I like, and I'm gonna buy it. And you really didn't.
TV? I have never done that. No.
You never walked in there and just bought a TV?
Nope.
How do you think people go and buy TVs?
How do I think they do it?
No. I'm talking about normal people, not you.
Yeah, no, right. How do I think normal people? Well, I would hope there's some amount of research or whatever, at least price comparisons on your phone if you're in a store or something. But I bet a lot of people do go walk into a Best Buy, compare them up on the wall, and make a purchase that way. It's nice to be able to do something like that in person, but the truth is the lighting in a Best Buy is not conducive to understanding how a TV is going to look in your house.
No, not at
And
all.
those things may not be set up correctly and
No.
may look worse than they can look. You have no way
I
of knowing.
I honestly, I think people just purchase it on price and size.
Yeah,
They
of
think the
course.
bigger and
That's the big
cheaper it
part of it. Yep.
is, the better of a deal it is, when in reality, that's not the
Well,
case.
yeah.
The other thing that I noticed, which was fascinating, is that the minus 50-inch TV is practically gone. You could get a 32-inch TV, but those like 44-inch, 46-inch, 42-inch TVs, they really are hard to come by. It's only maybe like TCL that makes a 36-inch or 32-inch, or maybe like another manufacturer, but it's very limited to purchase
Yeah,
a
but
new TV at
I,
that size.
it's got to be the money thing because your TV was what, $350 ish, 50-inch. Why would somebody pay the same price for a 42-inch or whatever? I mean, the market has kind of spoken. That's where TVs are humongous. The TV that I have, which is probably 55 inches or 60 or something. I don't remember. In that room, I could have a much bigger TV, but I'm not going to replace something that is working. But when the time comes, I'm not going to go smaller. I can tell you that. I mean, I think that's just the way the market. If you, I don't know. Again, like I think if you walked into a Costco or Best Buy, you'd see some smaller options, but the majority of it is all on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think the newer. Well, also think about how much it's costing them to manufacture a 50-inch compared to a 46-inch.
Yeah, right,
And how many
right.
they're going to sell. It's cheaper for them
Yep,
to keep bulk producing the displays at a size that's going to sell. But a couple years
yep,
ago, about 6, 7 years ago, 46-inch was the desirable size for a larger
sure.
TV for most people.
When
You
I
had a
was a
TV.
kid, 19 inches was considered big for a TV.
Was it?
you
I
know,
remember 30
I mean,
inches
you
was a
wouldn't even
huge
buy
TV.
a computer monitor that small.
My parents had a projector, a 42-inch projector, square
Yeah,
projector TV,
probably
and
320 by 240
it
or
was
something.
pushed into the wall.
Hmm.
It looked like crap. It was
Yeah,
terrible. It was such a
yep,
terrible TV, but it was big.
yep.
That it was a big TV, and that's what people wanted. It was literally just projecting a small screen on a giant
I
display.
one of my strong memories is a friend of mine, and this would have been like almost 30 years ago. It had bought I actually don't remember the kind of the TV, but it was a widescreen. No, it wasn't. I'm sorry. I guess it was still square back then. But you had DVDs and they could be widescreen or whatever, but they would have the bands, and he
Yeah,
would expand the picture so it filled the screen
so it was
because
all stretched.
he wanted everything on the screen. Like he wanted to use all of the screen. And I was like, dude, you realize this looks nothing like the movie.
Yeah,
But he's like, I don't care. That's what I just want it to look like. I
I
was like,
just wanted
okay,
zoomed in on the person's
that's
face.
I know it's nuts.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, I always thought that was just weird. But
You know what else I thought about when I was doing this research? Do you remember ED TVs that were a thing for about a year and a half?
no, what was
They were
the distinction there?
enhanced definition TVs.
Enhanced definition.
They weren't
Enhanced
HD
from what?
TVs. They weren't HD TVs. They were ED TVs.
Um, okay. Were they the same resolution as a DVD or something? Or
They were technically yes, and all they were
okay.
were widescreen standard definition TVs.
Yeah, so like 720 by 480 or whatever that
Yeah,
is. Yeah, I could
but
see
but
that.
wide, which was
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
bizarre.
widescreen. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
which was really weird to see that it wasn't HD. It was 80. And my mother-in-law bought one, and I kept telling her, she's like, I bought this HD TV. I'm like, it's not HD. It's just a widescreen standard
Oh, because
definition
this is its
television.
widescreen, so they thought it was yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, which was interesting.
Yeah.
I want to touch on this. I'm getting a TV in a day or two, which is amazing if you think about that. The TV is going to be here tomorrow, and I'll have it mounted on my wall the next day. And I'll give you guys a quick review of it once I put it up because I'm really curious on it. And I also I like the fact that it has Android TV on it, and I've been wanting to play around
Yeah.
with the latest, whatever the latest. I think it's Android TV 8 that it comes with.
Mhm.
I'm
You'll
not
be
sure if that's the
disappointed.
latest or not. Huh?
You'll hate it.
I'll probably hate it.
But
I'm sure.
yeah.
Yeah. When I put in EDTV, EdTV, the movie comes up. That's
Mhm.
all I'm seeing now for
Right,
EDTV.
right.
Enhanced definition
Enhanced definition.
TV. Let's see
I think
what
we
comes
added
up
a
for
few
this.
pixels on the right.
All right, so the term referred to the capability of displaying 480 lines or
Yeah.
576 lines signal in progressive scan. Yeah, it was a 480p TV. But
Yeah, that was DVD. DVD
that was
quality.
DVD. It was DVD quality TV, essentially. What a
Right.
stupid thing. What a really dumb thing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing that they scam so many people with this. So I wanted to touch on an article you have on Thurrott.com, and I thought that this is fascinating, and we've been talking about this for a while. And that's a story that was reported by 9 to 5 Mac that Apple's reportedly planning an ARM-powered Mac by 2021.
Right.
This is something we've touched on, considering the fact that Apple does make their own chipsets, and they have teased the idea of kind of going forward with this. But the company is reported to take more of an aggressive look and funding for R&D for production on a 5-nanometer processor. What do you think of this? I want to know, do you think this is a good idea for Apple to do, to kind of leave Intel on some of their devices?
I mean, I think it's inevitable. This is something we've been talking about for a while. There's also something fascinating. I probably discussed this previously, but if you haven't ever watched this and you're interested in this kind of stuff, Ave Tavanian, who was probably the chief technology officer or whatever when Steve Jobs took over Apple, and he was previously from Next. He helped design the Mach kernel that was used in Mac OS 10 later on. Obviously, helped design Next Step and OpenStep, and then Mac OS 10. Genius guy, great guy. There's a set of interviews. There's 2 interviews with him. I think it's from the Computer History Museum that's on YouTube. And one of the things he discusses is Apple's transition from PowerPC to Intel, and how it was. They had said, it's going to take us, I don't remember the time frame, 2 years or something, and they did it in a year and a half or whatever the time frame they stated. They did it much more quickly, and everyone was really blown away by how easily, or it seemed, that they were able to transition between platforms. But what Tavanian says in this interview is, the thing that people don't understand is we had been building Mac OS 10 on Intel ever since there was a Mac OS 10. So it really wasn't that hard for Apple to do because they had been doing it all along. They just hadn't shipped it publicly. And my suspicion is that because of the way Apple is, and with their, they bought the company that made their processors. They've been revving them in-house essentially ever since. They're widely regarded as being the best, or among the best, certainly, ARM processors in the world, that they have been looking at making this transition for years and years, and that they've been running some version or versions of Mac OS on the A-series chips for a long time. And so because Apple controls this, they can, of course, make modified versions of these chips that are better tailored toward Macs. We'll see. For this to work, they have to do what they did with that transition from PowerPC to Intel, which is provide some way for the existing software to work, even if it's a little slower, emulated, or runs in a container or some kind of semi-virtualized environment or whatever it is. But they have to be able to run today's stuff.
Yeah.
And we know, from.
Uh-oh. I lost Paul. You can hear me, Paul? Yeah, he could hear me. I can't hear him. You want to reconnect? Yeah, let's try that. I just lost him. Uh-oh. Let's figure it out. All right, Suncast, we'll figure this out. Paul's going to come back.
I assume you can hear me.
There we go. You're back.
Yeah, so there's something wrong here. And what happens is when the computer connects to the Focusrite USB connector thing, I get a little notification. And if I'm in Skype and that happens, and what it means is it went away for a second and then came back.
Yeah.
Just reconnect to it. And because we're doing it through the web browser, I'm guessing it didn't reconnect automatically or something. Anyway, I don't know why it happens. It literally has something to do with a loose connection on my, I don't want to do this. I could jiggle the microphone and disconnect.
That's all right.
But
that's all right. So
anywho, all I was trying to say earlier was simply that, Microsoft has worked with Qualcomm to bring Windows 10, obviously, to ARM chips, and they have to emulate Intel software there. So there's some precedent for it. And on the flip side, we've seen Apple has done the thing where they run iOS apps on the Mac, and iOS apps obviously are geared for ARM chips, the A series chips, whatever. So we have examples of that working in both directions. I I think they're going to do a good job at it. Like this is the type of thing they handle pretty well.
I mean, the biggest thing is software that runs on Intel, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So all their heavy duty software like Photoshop and whatever else you're using on the Mac, right? That's the big question, because anything that's Apple built, like their Movies app, their Photos app, their browser, even third-party Mac Store applications like the Twitter app that's now being merged in from iOS and everything else, that's going to be an easy transition for them, and they really shouldn't be too many hiccups considering the fact that they're working close with that software.
Yeah,
the hiccup would be everything else.
Yeah. So in the Windows world, one of the hiccups moving between Intel and ARM is 64-bit support. So the ARM stuff has been 64-bit for a while. That's true on Apple's as well, obviously. The emulation today only runs 32-bit software. So a lot of the more advanced software is 64-bit only, like Photoshop. So that does present a problem. I am sure, Apple being Apple, that they won't make this transition until they have full support for the whole line. I mean, we'll have to work with 64-bit software as well. In fact, I don't know as much about the Mac, but I would imagine the Mac transitioned to 64-bit only some number of years ago, and at some point, if it hasn't already happened, but sometime soon, they won't even support 32-bit software, I would imagine. I mean, something like that, I'm sure, but so they'll have to figure that out either way.
Yeah, to be honest, obviously you could kind of predict how they're going to merge this in, right? They're going to transition. The MacBooks are going to become the new ARM chipset.
Yeah.
You're going to have, which that'll create some confusion if not all applications run properly.
Well, I don't know. Like they don't sell the base MacBook anymore, but if they did, and you bought one of those machines, and it would come with less RAM, and maybe it came with slower storage or whatever it is, like I guess you could run Photoshop on it, but it would probably run kind of slow, I guess.
But you're not really running. You're not using that computer.
Yeah, you're not
a base
generating videos and stuff. I mean, the expectations are a little lower. By the way, the other thing that no one really is talking about that I've seen is Apple also has the opportunity to simply use both chips in a machine, right? So the lower end MacBooks, MacBook Airs, whatever, could run just the A series chips, and then the higher end Pro devices, maybe they have both.
Well,
there might be some processing advantages to that.
I'm going to tell you what's overlooked in the story, and then I saw one person maybe write about this, but kind of hinted at it. But this chipset that they're going to be doing, this ARM-based chipset, which they're going to make in-house for the Mac devices, they don't have a MacBook anymore. This is going to be the return of the MacBook.
Yeah, it could be. Yep.
100% it's going to be a return of the MacBook, and that's what they're probably going to start off with. That it's going to be running this
portless Mac,
everything.
USB port.
Yeah, everything will be portless, and they'll have this very thin device, fanless, portless, whatever it is, and that'll be their step above an iPad essentially. But by the time they get to a MacBook Pro, they're really going to have to iron out all those kinks and have Photoshop support and video and Final Cut support and Adobe Premiere support. All that stuff is going to be a necessity.
Yes, but I mean, even look, the difference between Apple and Microsoft, one of the many differences, is in their approach. You can see it in the approach to this thing. So Microsoft puts this stuff out early. The early versions of the chipsets on the Qualcomm side that support this are terrible. In fact, the very first version was literally a smartphone chip. They start making custom versions of it just for PCs. They're still terrible. Microsoft this past fall released their first customized version of a Qualcomm chip under their own brand. It's okay, but it still doesn't run 64-bit stuff. Apple would never put people through that kind of a thing. I mean, Apple certainly puts people through other things, but Apple would never release product like that. Apple will release this only when it works. It just works. There's not going to be some half-assed version like, well, this one will be really slow, and then there'll be a few more generations, and they're going to be really slow, and then eventually it will be fine. Like the first version has to just work.
Air, like the MacBook Air, the first one.
Well, I mean, the first MacBook Air didn't necessarily, didn't take off, but it was still fine for what it
Functional,
was. I
yeah.
mean, it was expensive, and that might have been like a core. What do you call those things? A core solo processor, if I remember correctly, maybe or
Well,
something like that.
also,
But
people need to remember they're in that first MacBook Air was competing in the era of the netbook, and it was far ahead of a netbook.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it was also 5 times as expensive, but
yeah.
um, whatever. But the point is that is how they'll do it. And by the way, this could be a lot of people are. I've seen the speculation. Well, does this mean we're going to see like low cost MacBooks because they
No,
make the chips? Like, no, 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 no. Like, no, this is going to be it's going to be a different kind of device. They'll position it in a certain way. Like if you're a professional, if you're recording video, if you're doing Photoshop, whatever, you're not going to get this. Gamers, no, this is not for you. But if you're a normal college student, maybe, and you live in a browser and you're doing email and just the regular Office apps, or better yet, the Apple iLife, whatever they call them these days, apps. Um, this will work fine for you, and I think that's the goal. But no, it's not going to be $500. It will still be $1,500 and up. But we see premium PC devices like this too. The super thin, fanless. They don't perform as well, but they're really pretty. They're still
yeah,
expensive. I mean, it's a style thing.
it is. So I'm curious to see how long they're saying within the next 14 to 18 months is the
Yeah.
report.
Yep.
Currently that they're going to have something on the market, and obviously it'll be longer for the higher end devices. But I see this being more than just a chip in a current MacBook Air. I think this is going to be a brand new device and maybe a line of devices that are running the ARM chipset, all different sizes.
Yeah, I mean, we
What
could
if
only
this is a
speculate.
foldable
I
device?
would I would just say that I don't expect them to use the same exact chips that are in their phones.
No,
I
no,
think they're
no,
gonna,
absolutely not.
they'll have they'll split it, and they'll maybe the cores are a little different, or they'll amp up the performance. The battery life obviously is not going to be as good, but they'll need it for the performance, and we'll see where it lands. But I think it's
Yeah.
going to be a branch.
Well, we also don't know what's going to happen with the coronavirus and everything hurting
No,
manufacturing.
that
You
maybe
know,
that's what I have, and I don't have to worry.
May-
I won't be
may-
around next week, so it's
maybe
okay.
that's what it is. We don't know. I don't know if it's contagious over digital or not.
Yeah, I'm
I'll
sure it
get it
is
by your
actually. It's from
coughing.
China, so
This goes over the copper
yeah,
lines,
yeah.
like in
That's how they
Gremlins. Remember?
that's how they get you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like in Gremlins. So another story you had on Thurrott.com was Microsoft shares the official Xbox Series X specs. That's
Yeah,
out now, so we know what this is going to be.
right.
The new details of the next generation. Expect more stuff, obviously, at E3. But from looking at this, Paul, is there anything that you didn't cover or we did not cover on this device?
The only thing that really matters, that should matter to anybody is, well, two things. First of all, yes, it's an Xbox One. It's going to be completely backward compatible with everything that runs on an Xbox One. So it's 4 generations of software. Whatever is in backwards compatibility or whatever works on Xbox One will work on this new device. And so I think that's super important. And then, I mean, you can talk specific specifications, but the important bit is it is kind of what we've been saying for a long time, which is 4K all the time, 60 frames a second, and then it will run 8K. And 8K is sort of like where compromises set in, where as was the case on the Xbox One X with 4K, developers will be able to choose between frame rate, resolution,
Yeah.
and according to the needs of the game. But realistically, what we're looking at here is 4K 60 frames all the time, across the board, and that's what this generation needs to be. So I think that makes tons of sense.
It's also 12 teraflops, Paul.
Yeah, which is whatever that means.
So
What is
here's the
that in
thing.
horsepower?
I know. How do you compare that to horsepower? So there's actually, if you go on that article on Thurrott.com,
Yeah.
there's a really interesting forum conversation happening in the
Okay.
comments section where
Really?
people are talking about, they're talking about like the NVIDIA GTX 2070 Super. It provides
Oh, I see.
around
Yeah.
9 teraflops to the computer. It's a $500 card.
Right.
So an RTX 2080, for example, is 11 teraflops. So the fact that this is putting out 12 teraflops, how do you measure? What does that
Yeah.
necessarily mean in terms of the Xbox? Because it's a very different way to look at it when you're
Right.
comparing a computer to this standalone
Well,
console.
for one thing, those are just graphics cards,
Yeah,
right? So, um, you're we don't really think in terms of teraflops with PCs. Like nobody's comparing PCs in that way. But your PC has some baseline frequency and performance metric, whatever it is, and then graphics capabilities on top of that. So I people are going to compare this to a PC, of course, because they have to. But the real comparison, the important comparison, maybe, is between this and previous generation consoles. So obviously, maybe not obviously, but in case people didn't know, I mean, the previous gen, the current gen, Xbox One X is more powerful than a PlayStation 4 Pro. It looks like the Xbox Series X is going to be more powerful than a PlayStation 5, but that hasn't helped them sell more. So, whatever that means, more powerful, more graphics fidelity, more games in 4K at 60 frames, whatever that works out to be, Microsoft will tell you it's like 2x performance improvement over the
Why do
Xbox
you
One X,
think?
which,
Why do you
whatever.
think the Xbox always plays catch up to the PlayStation?
Uh, well, okay. So to be honest, for most of the previous gen, and that's Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, the Xbox actually outsold the PlayStation for most of that generation. In fact, if you look at it as a kind of a 10, maybe an 8 to 10 year span or whatever, 8 years, 7 to 8 years of active life, for most of that, the Xbox was winning. Now, if you look at it today, what you'll discover is that in the end, the PlayStation 3 actually ended up outselling the Xbox 360. Not by a lot. They were both north of 80 million
I mean,
units.
but the PlayStation 3 was a Blu-ray player, so
Yeah, and it was more expensive. That was part of the problem. And I think that is what kind of hurt it in the beginning. It was more expensive. And I think what hurt the Xbox One in the beginning was the expense. And that's interesting because the conversation we're having right now is that same conversation again. You just mentioned how much those video cards cost. Well, given that, how much could an Xbox One Series X cost? Could it be $500? Could it be $600? And the answer is yeah, it could be one of those things for sure. And is the world ready for that much, for that high a cost? They weren't when the Xbox One shipped. That was $500 originally because they bundled the Kinect. They were trying to they were trying to ensure for developers that everyone had a Kinect, and thus it was not risky to write Kinect games. But the Kinect never really took off,
yeah.
and neither did the Xbox One in the beginning because it was too expensive. So they eventually fixed that problem, but they never really recovered. I don't think that's the only thing. People talk about the marketing of it, how it was marketed as kind of a all-in-one media player as well as a console. I don't really think that had anything to do with it. People will talk about game exclusives, and I think that might have had something to do with it. Sony has always done a really good job of marketing their exclusive games, but whatever the combination of factors is, the Xbox One today is believed to be somewhere around 50% of the PlayStation 4,
Interesting.
and that's not, it's still tens of millions of units. It's still good, but it's not what happened last time for sure.
Yeah. I'm looking at total sales. As of, by the way, this is something interesting, right?
Hmm.
Um, this current generation Nintendo Switch has sold 52 million
Yeah,
consoles
yeah,
as
yeah,
of
yeah.
December 31st, 2019.
It's only been in the
That's
market for like what, 3 years
yeah,
or something?
that's an astronomical number when you
Yeah,
consider what a failure the Wii U was,
the Wii U. Yeah, the
and
Wii
how
was
long.
the Wii was a huge success.
Let's see, the Wii U sold only 13.5 million devices. The Wii
Yeah,
sold, let's see,
it was
the Wii
140
sold,
or something. It was crazy.
discontinued. These numbers are really, I got to do the math here. 101 million.
101.
101.
So PlayStation 3, PlayStation or Xbox 360 were somewhere north of 80.
80, 84, and
Um,
87.
yeah, and we know that yeah, so that's close. I mean, we can call that a tie, whatever.
It's fascinating, right?
Um,
Because it sold so many. So let's look at Xbox. Let's look at PlayStation
well,
4.
but the PlayStation 4 we know is over 100 million units right now. I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact number,
And
but
still
it's
going.
over 100 million. But it's slowed dramatically, right? So because we're how many years in are we? 8 years or something. So the interesting thing about the Nintendo Switch to me is it's only been in the market for a short period of time.
Yeah.
They've already sold I mean, they've potentially outsold the Xbox One. you
They
know,
have. You know what's
like I mean,
interesting about
that's
them? Everybody
you
thinks it's inexpensive, right? Everybody thinks that the PlayStation's inexpensive. I'm sorry, the
PlayStation.
Nintendo
The
Switch.
Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But their market tactic is fascinating. They have a low entry point for the console. The games are obviously $54, $60, $70, whatever the typical gaming price, right? But
Yeah.
all the apparel that you need to buy. So if you want to play a game, it's very difficult doing it on that controller. You're going to have to get the Pro controller, which is like $50.
Right.
You're going to need 2 of those. So that's,
Yep.
$100 right there. You're going to need an adapter for that. The cost is
but,
not built in.
This is like a lot of conversations about different things. Like people talk about, cord cutting isn't as cheap as people think, or I would compare this to like an Apple product. You're kind of buying into a system, or community is not really the right word, but the Nintendo stuff's just going to work. Like this thing was graphically speaking, this thing was kind of laughable when it launched. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. The market doesn't care. So
I love my Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really find people that are ambivalent about it. Like people tend to love it. And
you know why? It's an easy thing. If I got a couple people over, and we do this all the time. I got a couple friends over. We're having a couple drinks. Somebody says, "You want to play Mario? You have Mario Kart." Yep. All right. Now the wives start playing. We start playing. Sure. It's 2 buttons you're playing with.
All right, but now imagine you had like a tower gaming rig in your living room. You could do the same thing. It'd be exactly as easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Hold on. Let me load up Windows.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. I got to update it. Hold on, guys. No, hold on. It's Windows updates quick these days. This will be fine. Oh, the NVIDIA GeForce thing has to update.
And then you USB drive. Hold on, my USB. It's not working. I got to plug it in the back.
Well, no, look. I mean, Nintendo's selling an experience. I mean, so yeah, it may not be as cheap as people think, but I think people buy it in the safety and understanding that this thing's going to work fine all the time, and it will for a long time.
Listen, I think the casual user is outnumbering the pro user at this point with computers. Before, about 15, 20 years ago, sure. I always tell the story, and people think it's crazy. My parents in 1988 went and bought a Tandy.
Wow.
A Tandy 2500 XL. And you know what they did? They put it in my bedroom as a 5-year-old.
Wow.
They said, "Here you go." My parents don't know how to use a computer. They said, "Learn."
Right.
I had a book on DOS.
Yeah.
And I literally
potentially spiral bound.
I have it actually. It's somewhere in one of these drawers. It's a introduction to MS-DOS and your kids, and it's a book about kids using Diskmate, which was the OS, I guess, the on top of DOS.
Like a shell on top of DOS.
Yeah, on how to use Diskmate. And I remember reading that book and learning how to do everything. I was a kid, and I would log into Prodigy. My dad would tell me during the Gulf War to print out, go to Prodigy, and look up the airplanes that the military is using, and I would print it out on my dot matrix printer.
Right.
I was a kid. I was 7 years old, 6 years old. Now, you think like, oh, wow, that's a lot. You knew so much. My kids know how to do everything on an iPad. My kids are 2 and 3. They're able to they know where YouTube is, and they know which video they want to click on, and they know, what opens the Photos app, and they know how to FaceTime my mother.
Sure.
It's amazing now, but before it was difficult. So I had the privilege and the amazing ability to learn and kind of teach myself how to use a computer. And even when I was a teenager, other kids weren't using computers. It wasn't a thing. And I grew up, technically I'm a millennial. You boomer.
I'm technically not a boomer, but thank you.
I got called a boomer the other day, and I yelled at him on YouTube. I said, "Hey, you nitwit! I'm 36."
Right.
And I guess calling them a nitwit kind of proved their point too. But I think it's interesting how everything is a casual product now. We always. How many years have we spoken about the holdup for Media Center?
Right.
How many people were? I mean, this was a topic, Paul. People were angry.
Yeah, but that's this is one of those things. In retrospect, you could have anticipated that was never going to fly because Media Center was a PC product. It was complex, lots of wires, lots of
TV
configuration.
tuners, yeah,
it doesn't work. Like Um, you talk about your kids and iPads. I mean, they could use the iPad to watch TV shows too. It'd be easy. Um, but they're never going to figure out IR blasting on a Motorola set-top box. That blah
Yeah.
blah blah blah. You go on it.
But they don't need
It was
to.
just always going to fail.
Everything that we tried, I mean, there was all these services that we were talking about even 5 years ago. It's
Yeah.
all there now. It's here. All that stuff we
Right.
were trying to do in Media Center, we were trying to do. We now have Roku boxes that have DVR support, and they have tuner support, and you could tie them in with a over the air service, or you could tie it in with YouTube TV. It's unbelievable. All these things, it's easy now. It's right there, and I think people find it boring. I think that's the problem. I think the biggest that's
Oh
honestly what
boy.
it is. People
Yeah.
find it boring. I
Hmm.
when we
Not
started
enough
doing
of
the
a
show.
challenge.
No, I guess
Is
I,
that
I
the
I
problem?
honestly believe that. When we started doing the show,
Yeah.
Paul, I was still using a Windows Mobile phone.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Jeez.
had a Windows Mobile 6.5 HTC Touch Pro, and I would go and get different ROMs and load the ROMs in so I could get a little bit more performance, or I could have the
Sure.
specific app or the look that I wanted. Now, forget it. Who's doing that?
Right.
Lunatics.
Yep.
It's because you're bored. That's why you're doing it. All these phones are great. Since we're on the subject, I want to talk to you about this. You pre-ordered the Samsung S20 Ultra.
Yep.
I had some hands-on with it over the
Okay.
weekend.
Talk to me.
I stayed downtown. I stayed at the Standard Hotel, the Standard on the High Line, downtown Manhattan. Beautiful, overlooking the water. It was awesome. Right across the street from there is a Samsung store.
Really?
And yeah, it's like a Samsung. It's been there for a while. It's not really a pop up, but it's a Samsung
Yeah.
retailer that doesn't sell anything, and you just go in there and try everything out.
Okay.
It's wild. So they had the S20s up there, and I had some time with the S20 S20 Ultra. So the first thing I did obviously was try to play around with the camera.
Yeah.
It's impressive. It's very impressive. I don't know if I would say, just from the short period I had with this phone, if it's the
Mhm.
best camera phone on the market.
Yeah.
The ability to zoom in on images is very good. I mean, it's doing obviously some software manipulation with it, and it's able to kind of fill in the blanks.
Right.
That is
First of
very
all,
impressive.
one of the big misconceptions about this phone, I think, out in the world involves the optical zoom. Um,
Mhm.
this phone does not have optical zoom. Like
No.
all of its zooming is hybrid or digital, which, by the way, doesn't mean it's bad, but it doesn't have 10x optical zoom. It's 10x hybrid zoom. So that's fine. The Huawei phone that I have that does the best zooming right now, I want to say it's 5x optical, but really to get if you're really zooming it, you want higher, zoom than that. And a lot of the zooming that I've done with it is really just it's hybrid zoom or maybe digital at some point. But that's okay. Like that's one thing. I zooming zooming is not the only use for a camera.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of neat when it's there. It's kind of like ultra wide mode. Like I like that it's there. It's not the deal breaker, but it's one of the things. One of the reasons I'm interested in this camera, this phone, is that I feel like Samsung has finally gotten the memo on camera quality.
In
It
what
doesn't
way?
mean that it's going to be perfect because they always kind of mailed it in before. Um, and the Note 10 Plus came pretty close. That one does have ultra wide. That works well. It can take great pictures. The problem with that phone is kind of the same problem with the iPhone. It doesn't consistently take great pictures. Like a lot of the pictures just come out kind of flat
Mm-hmm.
and bland. And the night mode stuff on the Samsung side, I understand what they're trying to do. It's probably acceptable to most people because the goal for most people is it's a dark room, you're in a bar, restaurant, whatever it is. I want to light up the scene. I don't want to have a flash. And it accomplishes that. It's
Yeah.
just that night mode on Huawei or Google or even Apple now is better. Just the quality is better. So I have realistic expectations, given my Samsung experiences in the past. But part of the rationale for me buying this is that my wife's due for an upgrade. She's a Samsung user. So if this thing doesn't work
This is
out
good
for
for her.
me, yeah, I
Yeah,
can,
so
moving along
Playing around
better.
with the phone, it's very fast,
Yep.
obviously. Super, super fast phone. Their
By the way,
UI,
flat what do you think? Flat display now, right?
very.
They're not going with the curved edges anymore.
No, they're not, which is bizarre. If well,
Well,
the bigger one is a little curved. There's a little curve
yeah, a
on it.
little curve. But I think
Yeah,
what we've cut look, it's a technological feat, to have a curved screen. It was for a little while an interesting differentiator. Samsung being Samsung, they tried to, have it have some use. They had these edge swipe things that, by the way, don't require a curved screen, but they to kind of justify it, and the animation of those panel things coming up over the edge was kind of cool.
yeah.
But it's a serious problem for reliability and
The curve.
durability. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I this might be the beginning of the end on that.
I
Plus,
I I
everyone's doing it.
I like it a lot. It's a really nice device. It feels good in your hand. Super thin.
Yeah. What do
It
you think
doesn't.
about the size of it?
It well, going from this, like, this is a gigantic phone.
Which that's the max.
The Max. It's a really
Yeah.
big phone. So
Yeah, it is.
this feels heavy also. So
Yeah,
it,
it
it
is
doesn't
heavy. The iPhone's very heavy.
yeah, it's tremendously heavy. So this uh, you know what, I should have done, like, the comparison. It felt good. It felt good in my hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Okay.
kind of says a lot about the Note and how the
Right.
Note is really not necessary for most
I
people.
know. It's become sort of superfluous.
This kind of was a nail in the coffin for it. Now the camera, though, I got to tell you,
Well,
it
except for
has
the
the
pen.
same it has the same problem that all the Samsung cameras have. And
Yep.
it's that it's almost, and I know people are going to get really mad when I say this, and I have an S10, I had an S9, I had an
Mhm.
S6 and an S7. It's almost like there's like this film. It's a little yellowy.
Hmm.
I mean, you could tweak it. You could tweak the white balance and you could get that photo, but when you take it
Right.
out and you do one of these,
Yeah, you just wanna take a snapshot and you
okay,
want
this is
it
what
to
I
be
want to
right
do.
every single time. Yeah.
There's almost like it's a
This is where
warmer color.
Samsung has fallen apart for me. It's not you can take a great photo, but you have to babysit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes
It's
it just
still
works.
there. It's still
Yeah.
there, but it may not be when you have it. I remember I was essentially in a warehouse with, like, really
No,
weird fluorescent
I wouldn't
lighting.
be surprised if this was true. It's still Samsung. I mean, they still have their software. It's um, we'll see.
I'll give you an example. Do you see how, and obviously this is not a fair comparison because I'm using a $3,000 Sony camera right now, okay? That you're looking
Yep.
at me on. This shot right here.
Mhm.
You know how do you see how, like, it doesn't look, the white balance is fine.
Yep.
The white balance is there. It's able to kind of separate the colors and the depth. I
Right.
feel like with the Samsung cameras, it that goes away. And obviously we're not talking the same comparison, but I feel that on my iPhone, if I were to mount it in that same shot, it is a closer representation
Yeah.
without any kind of
Although
tweaking. Without any
you
kind of
did you
tweaking.
but you saw at the Samsung event, they recorded and streamed that off of their own devices.
They did, and it looked really
And
good.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we can all make fun of them or whatever, and maybe, I'm sure they whatever they did with them, but I think that's really neat.
It is very
That's the
neat.
type of thing if Apple had done, the press would have fallen over
Oh, it
themselves,
would have been all over the
high-fiving each other,
place.
you
Yeah.
know? Oh, yeah. It would have been the biggest news story in the world.
The high-fiving each other always gets me
Yeah.
because I picture them every
Oh,
time
you
you
just
bring
know
that
they're
up.
it's just a giant circle jerk in that audience. It's
Yeah.
just yeah, it's like a conga line.
I think what you're gonna like the most, because you were a big fan of this feature on the Nokia phones, was the fact
Mhm.
that you could kind of zoom in and crop, and it doesn't
Yeah.
destroy
Yeah,
the
yeah,
image.
yeah.
That's the most impressive part. So I'm on the second
Right.
floor, and the guy actually let me take it out of the case. I told him, like, I do What the Tech, and he actually knew the show. He knew your website.
Oh,
Very nice guy.
didn't give me
And
a
he's like,
phone though, huh?
you want to? I know. I should have been like, you want to give it to me? He's like, you want to walk around
Could have
with it?
saved me
Walk around with it.
$1,400. That's just a thought.
I know. You know what? I wouldn't have taken it anyway from them. I made that mistake
Okay.
early on, and I would have AT&T send me all these phones, and they're like, "Yeah, keep it.
Right.
Don't worry about it." And the first bad review I gave, they
Yeah.
shunned me,
Yep. Yep.
so I got blackballed from them. So I don't accept these phones. I'll do a barter with certain companies. I try not to do it for the phones,
Alright.
in all honesty. But he let me walk around with this phone
Mhm.
around the place, and I have to tell you, So I stood on the stairs and Jess was at all the way at the other end. And I took a photo and I zoomed in. And I was
Right.
like, man, it looks phenomenal. I mean, obviously, once you zoom in more and more, it kind of falls apart. But the
Have
software,
you seen the photos on Twitter that
I
people
did.
do like the 4 shots and then the last one the guy's holding a sign that you can read now, but and
Yeah,
then the original he's not even a dot, you know?
I did. And it's very similar to that, actually, to be
Yeah.
honest.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's a great step forward. Um, this is why it's 108 megapixels. You know, it's for that ability to kind of stand back and take photos. So my hotel, and I thought about this, how what a great test this would have been. My hotel on the looking out of the window because it's floor to ceiling windows on the on the left side faces the Statue of Liberty in the distance. It's far, but it's there.
Right. Right.
And I actually zoomed in on my phone to kind of see at what point can I still see it and does it fall apart.
Yeah.
Um, so here's an example. I mean, I'm going to hold it up to the camera here. And this was not the camera, but this is on the iPhone.
Yep.
This is tremendously zoomed in, by the way. Let me do this. So, I mean, you can kind of see there's the Statue of
Yeah.
Liberty. So
Yep.
if I had that camera, I'm curious how clear this would have been.
Well, so someone did do a Statue of Liberty shot, right, with those, and it gets really close, but it's super blurry. And
Yeah.
blurry is not even the right word. You know, it's one of the
Hazy.
fruit flies in here for some reason. Must be the corpse I left in the corner. It I don't know
What,
what you
John
call it.
Prosser
It's
was
like
at your house?
yeah, it was like that digital effect where it's smooth, but it's you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
smooth. It's not blurry, but it's not
Yeah.
representative. It's just a blurry. I don't know. Blurry is not the right word, but anyway, you do get a lot closer. I'm curious. I've done a lot of Zoom stuff with the the Huawei phone, and the Huawei will do 50x. I guess it's probably purely digital at that point, but um, and you're going to want a tripod for it to be as good as it can be, et cetera, et cetera. But it does good zoom, and you must have seen the picture. Excuse me, I took of the moon on Instagram.
Yeah.
That was Huawei, and it was zoomed somewhere between 30 and 50x. And I just put it on the railing of the hotel thing there, and it wasn't a tripod or whatever, but it came out great. So
Samsung actually has a very detailed camera breakdown for you to see how good the camera is. But unfortunately, as I'm pulling up the website again, it's the images are broken. It doesn't load on their website. So
Sure.
perfect timing for that. Let me see if I got another one. Ongoing review. There might be another one here. Yeah, so this is the one. Actually, it's the same person that did those tests. Jessica Dulcourt, I think. Jessica Dalcourt. Yeah, it's actually very impressive, but I could still see. I'm looking at this and having a Samsung phone for so long, I know that these are taken on a Samsung.
Yeah,
Just the way that the photos look, it's wild.
Yeah.
I could tell you if you were to tell me that these photos were taken on a Google phone, on a Pixel, I would tell you no, you're wrong. I would be able to spot this instantly. It's just it feels like it's a Samsung. The whites are weird. I don't know why. The white balance is off on it. But listen, it's a great phone. This is a major leap forward. I'm curious what Apple is going to answer with.
Yep.
If they're going to start, if we're going to have a new battle of the megapixels.
I feel like Apple made such a big leap this past generation that they don't have. I mean, they could do some basic improvements to optical zoom, and that might be enough. I don't feel like they. I will say. I don't know. Well,
I'm going to tell you because at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game at the end of the day. People see numbers and they go, "Well, that has to be better." And when you have a phone, and I'm not saying that people that are going to buy an iPhone are going to they're going to go and buy a Samsung now. But if you see this and the person in the store, because these are not very highly trained people in the Verizon store, AT&T store,
right?
And they tell you, they're like, well, cameras are important to me. And they go, well, did you see that the Samsung is 108 megapixels? You're going to probably end up with that.
Yeah. Yeah, but you got to look at all the cameras, all the lenses. Like some of them are just 12 megapixels. So, they have this. I don't know. Well, again, specs don't mean anything. We have to see how this works in the real world.
Yeah. Even at the end of
You
the
know?
day, though, Paul, I mean, even mid-range phones are taking pretty decent photos now. I
Yeah.
think it's amazing how much stuff we're documenting.
I used the Pixel 3a XL about a month ago for about a month, and it takes phenomenal photos. You could buy that for right now for probably $300.
Yeah,
It's a great phone. You
yeah.
know,
You're not ordering the flip phone, the Galaxy Z or the Motorola Razr, Paul?
I like the idea of it. It's
See,
not for
you
me.
came around. You came around to it.
Uh, what do you mean by that?
You've softened up your opinion of these phones.
No, no, I never had an opinion about this kind of phone.
No?
An old school flip phone is stupid. That's the thing I think you're thinking about. A phone that flips open to a normal phone, but then is like half sized, and you can put in your pocket. That's fine. It just needs to be able to survive the folding and unfolding and
Yeah. Which
coins
we
in your
don't
pocket. So.
really know real world testing. We
No,
just
so
know
like the
that.
first version's not going to be that, but I mean, second, third, fourth, whatever, they're going to get that.
Yeah.
I saw that thing and I actually showed it to my wife, and I don't normally do that with tech stuff, but I said, there's something about this. I thought, you might actually like this, and she was like, yeah, she goes, that's actually really cool. She's like, but the thing I would find even more useful is if you had like a normal phone and you open it up and it was like two screens. It's like, well, they're making those too. So, yeah,
Which
you might
one
be able to
which
get
one
one of
stands
those.
out? Nick in our chat, super
Mhm.
user, had asked, what type of foldable is the best in your opinion? The Mate XS, the Galaxy Fold, or the flip phone? I don't know.
Well,
I the I think the Motorola is appealing because it's technically a Razr, and they kind of went with that. But the
that's
Galaxy, the
that's the
Galaxy,
least appealing.
you don't think so? Is that really your least appealing one?
Yeah, by far, yeah.
Which
I
one do you
see
like?
the appeal of the Z Flip or whatever that's called, and I see the appeal of, well, I would say the Huawei Mate X style is the one that's gonna win out, where you don't have another goofy kind of second screen on the outside that's there when it's closed. Like it's one screen. I guess you kind of close it on the outside. It opens up to two things. I mean, again, there's a lot of durability stuff that needs to be figured out there. But I think that's the design that wins out in the end. They just
Yeah,
have to figure out the durability stuff.
yeah, very interesting. All right, Paul, let's wrap it up. Are you available to do a bonus show?
Yep, and then I'm available to take a nap because
Beautiful.
I have been up for since 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what the hell's
Jeez,
going on today.
not fun. All right, guys, go to
Yeah.
the website, gfknetwork.com if you enjoy the show. Fund us on Patreon, patreon.com/whatthetech. You could go there for our bonus content that we record each and every week. If you're watching this live, stay tuned. You're going to be able to watch the bonus show here with us. If you're listening to the podcast, go to patreon.com/whatthetech and get our show there. Also, you can get our podcasts on therot.com and, of course, on gfknetwork.com and everywhere podcasts are available. Therot.com for Therot Premium. Go sign up. All this amazing content on there each and every day. And we'll see you all next time. Take care. All right.
What is this?
So Leo on This Week in Tech was talking about a story that John Prosser broke about the
Okay.
AirPods, the AirPod X.
I was just thinking we needed more AirPods.
And he pulled up John's photo, and I literally yelled, "Oh, F you!" at the screen.
All right.
He's getting a lot of people leaking him information, which is nice. Good for him.
Yeah.
Kid's good, man. And then you know what? I get a lot of crap. I want to talk about it on the bonus show. I'm going to talk about John a little bit. All right.
Okay.
We'll hit record in 3, 2, and 1. Hey, everybody, welcome to What the Talk. This is our bonus show. We record this live each and every week exclusively on patreon.com/whatthetech. I'm Andrew Aaron. Of course, I'm joined by Paul Therot. How you doing, Paul?
I'm pretty good.
Ready to go. We just finished our show, and at the end of the show, we were talking about John Prosser a little bit. And can I tell you what I get a lot on Twitter? And I don't know why. I get this a lot on Twitter. People go to me, why do you like him?
Why do you like?
Why do I like John?
Oh.
And
Okay.
I feel like I'm missing
It's a
something
weird
as
question to
to
ask somebody.
people. I'm
I
like,
would
because
say, why do you like chocolate?
yeah. Why do you like
I
chocolate?
don't know.
John is sweet like chocolate.
Hmm.
I apparently there's a ton of people that hate him.
Well,
They don't like the
but
way that he
I mean,
covers technology. They don't like that he's kind of aggressive with his delivery, which I'm like, that's the thing I
yeah,
like about it. It's different.
I just wrote about this kind of thing in a way like people see you online, by the nature of what you and I do, and John, I guess, we're kind of out there, so there's lots of fodder. You speak off the top of your head. And I'm from Boston, you're from New York. We speak very plainly. We don't beat around the bush. We're not passive aggressive. We're just aggressive.
A little
And
bit,
that's
yeah.
going to rub people the wrong way. And some people, you become very one dimensional in people's minds. Like if, to people outside of the Microsoft community, I'm a Microsoft goon. To people inside the Microsoft community, I'm a little too negative about Microsoft. Why can't I be more supportive? Those two things don't make any sense next to each other, but those are that's the feedback I
But
get
I
all
feel
the
like you
time.
don't
I mean,
get that
it's
Microsoft goon stuff anymore as much as you used to. You used to get
oh no,
that
I
a lot
absolutely do.
more.
Absolutely do.
Is at the same
Yeah.
level as
Oh yeah, no,
before,
I
or
I probably did more. Yeah, of course, yeah. But yeah, but that partisan nonsense is still out there. It's I
I
don't know.
get
Everything's a fight now, Andrew.
everything
Everything,
is a fight. Everything is a fight.
everything's a
Everything's
fight.
a well, you know what I always got, and I think it was because of my age at first, and now I'm in my 30s, so I don't get it as much. But
Yeah,
people,
you're an old man now.
I really well by internet standards, yes, I am. I get a
Okay.
lot of the Andrew doesn't know what he's talking about because whenever I ask a question, I present it for the everyday person, and I
Ugh.
don't present it for me. Like I will ask you a
Yeah, but
question that I have the
Andrew,
answer for.
you are, but you're a good host in that sense. You're allowing someone else to take the credit, and if anyone watching this thinks that, it's like, you ever what you know who Rick Steves is,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
Rick Steves is a European travel writer and a TV host and whatever. He's been spending, I think he spends somewhere between one third and one half of every year in Europe, and he's been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
So he could record a show tomorrow, and he will sometime soon because he does this every so often. He'll go back to Paris and he'll sit in a cafe with someone and he'll say, "So tell me, what's the typical thing that someone in Paris might eat for lunch?"
Yeah.
He knows the answer to the question.
He knows the answer. Yeah.
He's not new. He's just giving the person he's talking to
Yeah.
the chance to be on camera and answer a question. He's not. That's what you do. It's the
I
same
think the
thing.
difference is so, and I played like every show that I do, it's a different show. I can't be the same version of me
Yeah.
on every show. So
Yes.
and I think
Your
that's the
multiple personality disorder is a
comes
completely different
out
topic.
so
But
well. But
yeah.
you have to kind of present like I'm in a different role, like the wrestling show, right? The wrestling show, I
Hmm.
break tremendous news on that show. I got a story that I broke about the Mandalorian actually. That
What?
yeah, I broke
What are
this.
you
It's
talking
all
about?
you didn't see it. It's all over. Forbes picked me up. It's all over.
Oh
I
my
broke a
God, dude.
tremendous story about the Mandalorian that
Please explain this to me. What are you talking about?
next season of the Mandalorian, Sasha Banks has a role in it. Now Sasha Banks is a pro
And who
wrestler.
is I see. Because
And
season 1 had that MMA fighter
It
turned
had
actress,
Gina Carano.
Gina
And
Carano, who, by the way,
this
I actually
season,
really like a lot.
yeah, she was great on the show.
Yeah.
This season will have Sasha
Well, I mean,
Banks.
she's just great in general. Like, she's made some good movies.
Yeah,
I think High Wire or something like that.
yeah. All the action films that she's
This
gonna
was
get
definitely an
Oscar
action. It wasn't a
for.
romantic comedy. Yeah. Whatever, but it was a good movie. Anyway, okay.
I broke this story and it got picked up everywhere. Forbes picked up the story.
Yep.
IGN, CNET, and I went all over. Like, I broke that story. It was tremendous. I do that on the regular basis on the wrestling show. I don't play the role.
Well, hold on
of
a
the
second,
layman.
though. You're saying that you break wrestling news.
Pro wrestling news, yes. This just
I mean,
happened.
is it news really?
Of course, it's news, Paul. It's like talking about the Red Sox. Is it news? You know. Don't be upset that the Patriots
Did
didn't
you
go far
know?
this year. I know. It's very
I've said
disappointed this year for you.
I've said I'm going to change the subject. So
Yeah.
every year I exchange the same joke with you about the Mets, where I say have they been statistically eliminated from the playoffs yet? And it'll be like the
Yeah.
preseason or the first game of the season, whatever. You must be aware that Family Guy did that exact joke.
Oh, I know. I saw it. I
It
saw
was
that.
like, hey, it's like being a Mets fan, and he's like, hey, we are at opening game, and then there's like the sound of a home run, and the Mets have been eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah. It's but you know what the most
Oh,
disappointing thing about the Mets are?
so
The
good.
most disappointing thing is that it's such a hopeful year for them. Like they actually have good
What?
seasons, and through process of self-hatred, they
Oh,
eliminate
I see.
themselves.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
become it's self-hatred. That's what it comes down
there
to at
is
the
a
end of the
unique
day.
hell, I think, to being a New York sports fan. But anyway,
Yeah. Well, the
you were
Yankees
saying you
do
break.
phenomenal every year. So
Uh,
listen, my joke right now is that the best quarterback in New York is the guy on the XFL team.
I agree that falls under the heading of a joke. But
I
the
honestly,
XFL.
the kid's good, and the XFL's doing well, which is crazy to think about. That it's back 20 years after it went away.
Someone I know on Facebook posted a story about how some professional hockey, like an NHL hockey team, their primary and backup goalie both went down with injuries. So the guy who drove the Zamboni at the stadium came in as goalie.
That's wild.
And he said, "This is why I love hockey." And I replied, "You love hockey because someone can come in off the street and play the sport at the same level as the people that are making millions of dollars a year?"
Yeah,
What are you talking about? That's not a sport.
yeah,
It's like to me the XFL is a little bit like that. Like, it's crazy, but Bob was bagging groceries at the the
that's
Safeway last
yeah.
weekend. It's like, yeah, it's not that crazy.
I'm telling you, it's good
It's like,
football. They're playing good football. The
okay,
problem here's the difference between this version of the XFL and the previous one. Right, the previous one was kind of
yep.
going on it was piggybacking on pro wrestling, and it was piggybacking on the Vince McMahon.
They did have a couple of legit stars though.
They did. He hate me. That
I
guy
was
named
thinking
He Hate
more
Me.
of Herschel Walker, but yeah, okay, he
Yeah.
hate me.
Herschel Walker, yeah, great,
Yeah.
very good football player. So these
Yep.
guys,
I
however,
had by the
are
way, I did have a he hate me shirt at one point. But
I
go
knew it,
on. Go on.
knew it. These
He
guys
was Las
are
Vegas, right? Didn't he was
no
Las
New
Vegas?
York, New York.
Oh, he was in New York?
Yeah, New York. The New York Hitmen. Now they're the
The
Guardians, the New York Guardians.
Guardians. Now they're like Marvel comic. They're the tie-ins for like a Marvel TV series.
So these
Okay, sorry, we
guys
got far
are.
afield. You break news in wrestling.
I
That's
break
what I just
huge
heard,
news
which
in
is a
wrestling.
nonsense
Tremendous news in
sentence by any
wrestling.
measure.
Tremendous
But
news in pro wrestling, Paul.
yep.
And do you know
Okay.
how many of our viewers watch that show? The crossover is astronomical.
I'd like to speak with those people right now.
It says
if
a
I
lot
could, for
about
a few
you
minutes.
and your website that it harbors such people.
Right?
TheRut.com
All right.
harbors its technology enthusiasts
It's
and pro wrestling fans.
TheRot.com. It's the pro wrestling of the technology world.
The logo is going to be Brad hitting you in the head with a chair. That's going to be
Yeah.
the new logo for TheRot.com. But
I like it.
I break a lot of news on that show. So I play a very different role than I do on this. I host,
Okay.
I guide the show on this one. On that one, I'm kind of going
Yeah.
back and forth and I'm throwing ideas because much like you, I get told information every single day. People come to me
Right,
from
right.
different companies and they leak information to me. So it's a very different role. And I have a hard time explaining to people that
Oh my God.
with this show that we do, I like to take the show and drive it. I'm driving the show.
Yes,
I'm not
for sure.
necessarily feeding the information. I'm presenting information, and then we're having a discussion on it. But your role is to fill in the blanks there, and people take that as I don't know what I'm talking about.
You've described me as a Mad Lib.
You're a mad lib.
But go on. Yes, okay. I accept that.
I find that interesting that people get upset by that. That I'm not sitting there and
If
telling
people
them
don't
how it is.
understand you or your role, I feel bad for those people. But I will say, I think one of several things that you share with, say, Leo, is you are broadly knowledgeable about an incredible range of topics.
You hear that, Leo?
And but this is a huge strength of Leo's and of yours.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
this
absolutely.
conversation could veer off on some sideways trajectory, and you have no problem making that transition. And that's a unique and kind of a rare skill. I'm very lucky that I get to work with two people like that. It's crazy.
You know, Leo knows an unbelievable amount.
Yeah,
Even
it's
like
nuts.
watching. I'll give you a
Yeah.
great example.
No, but you're the same way.
People ask me all the time. They go, "How come? Why don't you do a call-in show,
Yeah.
like a tech
Yeah,
guy
yeah,
type
you'd be
show?"
great at it because it could
And
you'd never know what's coming next,
you never know what's
and it
coming
wouldn't
next.
matter. You'd be good at it. Yeah.
But I always tell people the amount of credit that Leo should get from that he
Right.
doesn't is unbelievable. The fact that somebody could call
Yeah, ask anything.
and a lot of the questions, by the way, on that show are not necessarily about Azure or
No, right,
a
of course.
Hyper V
No, but you know
conversation.
what? He could speak intelligently to that
No,
stuff.
no, no, he can. But those, you know
I
what the
yeah.
questions are? Hey, Leo, my mom's 86 years old, and
Right.
I'm trying to buy her a printer. And that's going to work. And he knows which printer would be
Yeah, yeah,
good
yeah.
for that person's mother because of the age and how they're describing it.
Sure.
That's a tremendous ability to have. Because if you ask me,
Yeah, no, it's
what printer should I buy? I'm going to turn around and say, why don't you go to Best Buy and just buy any of them? Because they're all the same.
right.
You know what I mean? I think the fact that
Yeah.
he could give trouble support on the fly
Right.
without,
Right.
having the answers in front of him. Obviously, they do pre-screening, and I know how that works. But the call
Yeah,
screen
but
is
come on,
not
man.
Googling and finding answers.
Listen, if you've ever seen a stand-up comedian, one of the way I mean, just a straight stand-up act, I mean, depending on the person, could be fantastic, no matter what. But if you wanna see real intelligence, watch a stand-up who can walk out into the audience and just start interacting with people, and it goes off in some direction that had nothing to do with a pre-made set that he just does every single night over and over again. And I've seen comedians like that, and that's that skill. It's the ability to kind of handle yourself in a real impromptu way because
Yeah.
not knowing what's going to come next.
It takes a lot. I get asked all the time about the podcast. Like, we started doing the free for all again, which was one of the most fun shows I've ever done. It was just
Yep.
like a bunch of guys drinking, shooting the shit, and taking phone calls. And people just call in and talk about whatever. It could be about a
Yeah.
conversation about anything. And
Right.
that's one of the most fun show because you kind of tap into people's thought process and you get to know who's listening. So I brought it back and we did one show. We're going to be doing it once every month or so. And we're doing it this week, this Friday. And I'm trying to get this phone line hooked up. Chris Tobin has to come next week to get the phone line set up because I love that old school radio concept of people calling in, a call screener doing it, and then just, here you go.
Hmm.
Just answering phone calls and it's very intimate. That concept of radio, really, I love that.
Right.
I think that because of the way that technology is and how content has changed, it's lacking now. Nobody does that kind of stuff.
Sure.
That doesn't exist on the internet. Obviously you got Dave Ramsey that does you got Rush Limbaugh's and you got Dave Ramsey and you got all these like phone call-in type shows that exist, but nobody does like a general show anymore where people could just
Yeah.
call in and it's internet-based. It's lacking. So I
Right,
think there's a
right.
market for this, and I think it's a fun market and people get to know people. It's interesting. So I like the aspect of radio, and because I listened to so much radio growing up, I have this bizarre knowledge. I have the knowledge of like a 55-year-old man. The things that I'm interested in. I'm like an old man with my knowledge of music. Like, you tell me now, I don't know what's on the top charts at all. But because of what I grew to listen to Howard Stern growing up. So that's really my, Leo, for example. I listened to Leo for many, many years. So, you kind of pick up where people leave off. You there? No? You're muted. Yeah. Paul will reconnect. I was like, it got quiet here. And I was just ranting. No, but I think that's the interesting thing about, doing radio and talking and all that stuff. I told Paul a while ago, and I think Paul's back. Paul's back?
Yep. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
there we go. I told Paul that a major radio, WABC, for example, here in New York, was interested in picking up the show.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like we need to do radio. I kind of like having the freedom of doing our type of content. If it's not necessary to make it in this anymore. When you see the amount of people downloading the show every week, I don't think I would be able to get that on radio.
Right.
You know, it's amazing that this is the prime way to get content out. You know, being in a newspaper, being in print, and being on the radio is or television even. It's not necessary to kind of have great content. I don't know. I can't tell you the last radio show that I listened to. Everything I listened to was a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. The majority of what I listen to is podcasts now.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
listen to
unbelievable.
radio at all. I mean, the other parts are just audiobooks, I guess, but mostly it's podcasts.
Yeah. All right, Paul. Let's wrap it up. I'm gonna install this TV, so we'll see how
Okay.
that is. I'm very curious
good luck.
how the quality is. Very
I bet
curious
it's
how the
pretty good.
quality is.
I bet it's okay.
You know what? How bad could it be? It has like 500 reviews at 4 stars. How bad could the TV be?
Just connect a laser disc player to it and see what that looks like. You know,
My Betamax.
you
I'm
never
gonna connect
know.
my Betamax. Yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next time. Take care. All right, that was fun.
Yeah, the cat jumped up on the desk and the little notification slid
Yeah.
over that. You know, I'm like, yep, I disconnected.
I need
That's
a
how.
thumbnail from you. Hold on.
Oh god.
All right, look and smile. Let's do one more. All right, got it. Thank you. Suncast won't beat me over the head now.
At least it'd probably do it anyway.
He looks forward to it. Suncast, by the way, my chair is broken also, so I'm in the same boat. So when you find a good chair, let me know. He bought a $500 chair,
But a high sense chair.
and I have a Hisense chair. He bought a very nice chair, and it broke within a week.
Yeah, I've had the same like Herman Miller chair or whatever.
Yeah, those are
since
nice.
2000,
Mhm.
maybe 99, 2000, I guess.
Really, that long?
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, really high quality. It really is high quality. It's good.
Excellent. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next time. Take care.
Bye.
That was fun, Paul.
Yep.
All right, let me kill this feed, kill that feed. All right, Paul, thank you.